Welcome to Helping Heal Horses, a holistic animal insights interview featuring April Love with host Poppy Phillips.
Well, happy Monday, you guys. Middle of June. We're halfway through the year and we've got April Love today. And several of you had reached out to me to talk to me about April. So I pursued it. I want to say that I pursued April. And April, some of our members are super excited. They watched your unwinding video and they loved it. And you are a Northern California native, I think. I heard about you, gosh, probably like 15 years ago. And we've never crossed paths, which surprised me that we never ever crossed paths. So when she was giving a clinic over at Michelle Hasseltine's Pine Trails Ranch in Davis, I was all over it. I was like, Michelle, I want to come and meet her. I need to say hi to her. I need her on as a guest. And so I aggressively pursued her. And she was more than open to saying hello and just gracious and very open with her information, which I was blown away from. But she also is a great instructor. She loves her horses. She loves training people. She wants to make a difference. And I think she actually has. She has traveled all over the world teaching equine body work, but she's more than just an equine body worker. This woman thinks out of the box more than anyone I know. So April, welcome today. Thank you for being live with us on our membership.
Thanks, Poppy, for having me here. It was great to meet you when I was in Davis as well, because on Maui, I don't have a lot of horse people to talk to, and you and I were just like...
Yeah, we were all over it, you guys, because she's a little different thinker as well as myself, but she actually made me speechless a few times, literally, which is really hard to do. So, April, tell us your origin story of how you came to be who you are today. What was there an event? Was there were you raised holistically or did you just dabble in it? What's your story?
So I was lucky to have riding lessons from my grandma when I was in like 6th grade once a week. And none of that's holistic. That's just a horse and a saddle and go ride. And then they got us horses. We had a little 5-acre ranch in Santa Rosa. And I had grown up in San Francisco. So they would take the grandkids up on the weekends and there was lots of chores to do. So there was 3 horses. We tried to disappear on the horses so we didn't have to do all the chores in 105-degree heat, like weed whacking and watering grandma's plants. And we would take off. And those poor horses, they'd be coughing or limping, but we didn't care. We're like 12 years old. We just wanted to get somewhere away and go hang out under a tree all day or by a creek all day or something. I left it when I was 17 and I got back into it at age 30. Because a lot of women find that that really was their passion. I was like, oh, grow up, can't have a horse anymore. I got to have a job and kids and family and all that. So they find in their 30s and 40s, they're coming back to the horses. And then it was like a re-education. And I had fallen in love with Jerusha, this mare, and did everything wrong saddles from Jeffers, and wormed her as soon as I bought her and brought her home. And she'd never been off the property where she was at, colic that night. And it was just learning everything the wrong way, feeding straight alfalfa and sweet feed, wondering why I had a neurotic horse that jigged all the time. And I used to team pen on her as well as do the 50-mile endurance rides. And one day she just didn't really want to get in the trailer and couldn't back out of the trailer. And my horses, I could take them by their mane and load them in a 2-horse straight load trailer. You know, no halter, no nothing. So something was wrong. She was trying to half rear to get out. And someone had told me about an equine body worker in the area, like body work for horses, So he came, did a bunch of work on my horse. And all of a sudden, instead of 8.5, 9-hour, 50-mile rides, I was doing them in 4.5 to 5 hours because I had 100% of the horse. There wasn't always, low gut sounds or low, metabolism or anything like that. So then that I wanted to kind of learn it, and I started training other horses, but I was still paying the body workers. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm only clearing about $200 a month training horses, and they're leaving with $500 in a day. Something's wrong with this picture, right? And just being in endurance, I just kept wanting to take another class and take another class. They said, take a sports medicine massage course. So I did that for horses just to learn all the muscles, but they don't even get into the groin or the inside of the hind legs. And then you take a ting point therapy class and you're like,
April, I think it's totally weird that they called it sports medicine massage for horses, and yet it was super superficial. Like literally.
It's near you guys. She was in Newcastle and we practiced on brood mares that didn't have a muscle anywhere. And I paid $1,200 for that course. I'm like, okay, this isn't it. And then you do ting point therapy and it's like, okay, the meridians are out of balance, but you have side bone, ring bone, and arthritic core. So, and then, you start doing the body and then you're like, oh, but they have a crooked head. And people are like, well, how are you going to fix that? Okay, I'll go take more courses. So like $19,000 later, it's like, okay, I took this course, and I took that course, and I would take it back to my little horse, Tiki. He was a white Arab gelding. And I'd practice on him, and he was kind of my spirit horse. He'd say like, he liked this, or he didn't like this, or throw that out. And that's how I kind of developed my program that I put together. And at the time, I was having a lot of shoulder issues from doing cranial sacral the other person's way, where you let the horse thrash on you. And I was like this. I would put my hand on the horse and like walk up like this, and then put this hand on, walk up like this. And they give me the saddest horse at the end of the day. Oh, we didn't know you do this. Can you fix him? And I'm like, I can't even lift my arms. And when you get into a lot of the healing work, like Louise Hayes, Robert Tennyson Stevens, and shoulders is burdens of the world, thinking that you're the only one good enough to do it, that you have to do it all. No one can do it as good as you. So you have to let go of ego, because everyone who learns it is going to bring something else to the table. There's not just one way to clear an energy meridian, something like that. So it just kept evolving. Every time someone says, well, what would you do about uveitis? I go, I don't know, but that horse's head looks like Van Gogh. This eye's way up here and it's way down there. And we could fix that and see what happens. And then 2 months later, they say the vet said he must have been wrong and misdiagnosed it, because uveitis never gets better and they don't need to remove the eye anymore. And I'm like, yes.
And we actually have the before and after on that horse, you guys. So how exciting is that? Is giving horses, not only horses, but humans, hope for their horses. And so, April, thank you for your passion. I just find it so amazing that you invested and you dove deep, and every time you had a problem-solving issue, you figured it out. Like you went somewhere, you did something, you got it done almost all the time. Like you've fixed some really out-of-the-box things that most people say can't be fixed. So,
especially stage 4 roar and equine shivers and string hold and all of those things. So that's been the most amazing.
That's cool. So what'd you do for the roar? Was that a sternum first rib issue, or what was that?
So that's level 3. So what we found, I had a horse, I got called back east that had stage 4 roar, and the cranial bones are compressed on the left side, compressing the laryngeal nerve on the left, and the first rib is misaligned, compressing thoracic outlet on the left. So it's compressing both ends of the nerve. And it was a vet that actually gave us the diagram and showed it to us. And I was like, so are the tie back surgeries always on the left? And he says, yeah, they are. And I said, so where's the laryngeal nerve on the right side of the body? He goes, it runs in a different pattern. So we did the cranial work on the horse, the first rib. We did cold laser therapy for the nerve damage, and then fed nerve regeneration herbs like from Silver Lining. And he went back down to a stage 2 to where she could ride him again.
That's amazing. And I actually didn't know the nerve only ran on one side of the neck.
Well, it's both sides, but it's a different pattern. So when it happens on the right, it doesn't affect the breathing apparatus.
So, but when it happens on the left, it compromises and compresses.
Yeah, and then it starts to get really lazy, that flap. And I had a really powerful horse in training, an Arab mare, 15-2. You asked to trot, you'd slide to the back of the saddle. And she had that from the racetrack. And the vet just kept saying, just keep riding it till it gets so bad. And so bad means that, and the other horse that we helped too, just leading them, they can't breathe. So I would pony her and she couldn't even climb a hill. She couldn't get enough oxygen. And then they did the $5,000 tie back surgery. But this was before I knew all about the stuff that I know now.
That's so exciting.
But it was just sad to watch this powerful horse just go to.
Well, and it's technically a head injury.
Yeah, two things, but yeah.
Or
there's always more than one thing
affects that.
Sorry?
Do you think dentistry could be a culprit too?
I followed Bert Lambert around. He was a great equine dentist. He'd go with a book and say this tooth would mean this lameness and this tooth would be this. But I don't think the laryngeal nerve is that close. I do know that the crooked head makes it so the horse can't chew sideways. So they start to chew up and down, making the hooks and waves. And then your horses will get that big muscle on the forehead. So you'd probably see all of that before it would be affecting laryngeal nerve.
You're the only other person that I've ever heard talk about the temporalis muscles being bulgy. Most people think it's very attractive, especially halter horse people, and they're shanking those halter horse people, the horses so much that their temporalis muscles like end up bulging. And when you point that out and it goes away, everybody says, I didn't know that wasn't normal. But it is not normal, you guys.
Right.
Yeah. So fascinating and fun.
And when you're like that, you're going to be spending a lot of money on power tools to take down the hooks and waves. And that just creates, cracks in teeth and cavities and the teeth loosening in the gums.
I love talking to you because it makes me think different. It makes me think deeper and different. It's a little overwhelming, April,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fun to think about a whole new angle. And we're both muscle testers, so we can definitely go through a process of muscle testing and ask these questions. You actually believe that many things are related to viruses. Is that true?
You have a lot of things going on, but so first rib is usually misaligned in horses by 6 months of age, starting your high lows and a whole bunch of other issues. And we've switched to the knotted rope halters like 20, 25 years ago for the natural horsemanship. So all the horses are coming up with Cushing's, uveitis, more damage because that thin knotted rope just slides right up behind the occiput when they sit down and pull back on these patient poles. So between the smushed head, the first rib, and nothing in the body, working well, when you have cranial issues, it opens the body up to absorb more things. And since COVID hit, I do long distance readings on horses. People send me pictures and I let them know what's going on, viral, bacterial, with bones, where there's pain, all that. And all the horses are coming up with viral in the lungs for the last 3 years. And they're like, well, it doesn't transmit to horses. I said, you're petting them on the nose. You're kissing them on the nose. You're biting a piece of apple and giving it to your horse. How do you think it's not transmitting to the horses? And so when we muscle test in the class and you get viral in blood systems and dural tube and brain, that's usually when we find EPM. And I'll say, have you tested your horse for EPM? And if there's viral and bacterial, I'll say, have you tested your horse for Lyme? Yeah, how'd you know? Because I asked.
Yeah. So fascinating. Now, do you think some of that viral muscle testing is vaccine overload? Because for me, when I muscle test and I get virus, often it's vaccinosis.
Definitely, because most of my clients that their horses can't have the shots anymore. I've told them about the homeopathic nosodes, the living vibrational waters to try and detox their horses. But it's the pharmaceutical companies that are telling the vets that your horse needs this. The vets aren't taking and drawing blood to see that you still have titers 5 years later from that 4-way shot. So we're over vaccinating and overworming, and then we're starting to see your metabolic issues, your IR, your insulin, your allergies is all from the smushed head and all the toxins in their body.
The overload, the overactive immune system. What is that water thing you just mentioned?
So I think it's called Healers Who Share. It's vibrational water remedies, and you do like saliva and a hair test, and they'll see what all the stresses are. And then they have different vibrations of water that you have to give to the horse. It's kind of a pain in the butt. People to this little bit of water for 15 seconds in the mouth, nothing else for 2 minutes, then another one. But I know a lot of people that it's really brought their horses back around, because if they are in a show barn or, a big training barn, oh, you have to have those shots. And I'm like, but you don't have to do them all in one day, So I even tell the vet, if you want to make a good army, you don't give it 6 things to do. You train it for one thing. If you want tetanus, if you want West Nile, if you want strangles, you want an immune system for that. Just let the horse work on that for 3 or 4 weeks before you add something else in.
Well, and I think the general community has seen enough bad reactions to vaccines that now vets are getting a little more lenient about running titers and also riding horses out of the need of vaccines. So I have quite a few clients that now show with a disclaimer that their horse can no longer receive vaccines. So I think that's amazing that the shows are okay with that. And it is rolling that way, but it's been a long, slow process of education. People like you and I just talking about it over and over and over again.
But they're doing the same thing with their kids. How many shots are the kids supposed to have before they even leave the hospital when they're newborn?
I don't understand that stuff at all.
You're not going to go there, yeah.
At all. And it breaks my heart to see the younger generation attacked like that in like prevention.
You don't love your child if you don't give this. You don't love your horse if you don't give this. And I'm like, it took me so long because I was that person doing the worming and the vaccine. And, my body worker was saying that's bad. You got to clear the liver. You got to do all these things. So it was a process. And first it was my horse, then it was my dog, then it was me. What do you mean I got to stop drinking milk? What do you mean I got to stop doing this? And you're like, really? And so it's kind of a learning process, but I got to tell you, so I took all the courses for my horse Tiki. He was an Arab off the racetrack. When I got him, he had a tight web halter on and sores all over his face because they never took it off. They couldn't catch him. And first thing I did is let him go in a big pen, go up, say hi to him every day, feed him a carrot, leave. I just really liked his mind. He was about 14'3", 800 pounds. So I decided to keep him, but he just had all these issues. And even after legging him up for a year, he's pulled at 3 out of the first 5 races, but always something different. And when you ask the vets, he's grade 2 lame, he's grade 3 lame. Well, where is it? Well, I don't know. We can nerve block it and tell you what it's not for $600. I'm like, all right. Or you can go home and just give it bute and time off and hope it gets better. So I went from that to being able to sit at when they vet in horses on the 100-mile endurance rides and go, yep, roachback, hunter's bump, 4 feet out of balance. That horse will go about 70 miles. Oh, that horse looks good. He might actually make it 80 miles. And it was interesting to see how right I was. And when Tiki and we did 2,000 miles of endurance in 2007 and 2008, and I was a lot heavier. So I was 215 with tack on my little Arab.
Wow.
When we weighed him, he was 1,025 pounds. We did 41 consecutive rides of 50 miles or more in a day in 2 years with no vet pulls, no vaccinations, no wormers. And he was drinking water with 100 other horses, slooping in the water troughs, washing their bits, and, from all these different areas. But once you learn the holistic, you can ask, what does my horse need to boost his immune system to do this event? So 2 years of endurance, no vaccines, no wormers.
What do you use for warmer? Do you deworm?
So at the time I did the Dynamite Excel. It's a feed through organic. It's got digestive aids and the diatomaceous earth. Summertime fly, I tell people to get the 50-pound sacks of organic feed through diatomaceous earth and sprinkle it on all your poop piles. And then you won't have any flies in 2 weeks. You can keep that up where the horses pee. And then you can feed that through. And then about every 2 or 3 months, I do a fecal count. If you're going to do a fecal count, you should do it on the full moon because more eggs hatch in the horse's body on the full moon. So if you have to use a chemical wormer, do it on a full moon cycle, like the third or the fourth day. So I just kept doing that and calcium bentonite clay, and he didn't have any parasites for 2 years.
That's awesome. I love bentonite. I use it a lot in my practice. What about you?
Yep.
Yeah. So I use it internally, externally, heavy metal detoxifier. The little prince is waking up.
So if horses, we weren't allowed to diagnose that your horse has an ulcer, but if you do my belly lifts and the hind leg comes up to kick you, I say your horse has a sour stomach, and we'll mix up the miracle clay and give it to him every day for like 10 days in a row with the trace minerals, and it just seems to settle the stomach. So the horses that stress for being hauled in training, I just tell people to always have that on hand because it's like taking a Tums, just really settles the stomach.
I love it too. I've seen so many amazing things with bentonite, and I preach bentonite in this group till the cows come home, I think. But yes, it is a miracle clay. I always tell everybody, God made everything through clay, and here you go. You will heal with the clay too.
Yeah, they call it miracle clay, and on the side it has the recipe for people to drink it for their ulcers. But we also used it to do the 4 legs after the endurance ride when we wrap them for the night. And if you got poison oak or anything, you could put it on. It would just dry it out. And it was a really good facial.
Even Cleopatra used it. If it's good enough for Cleopatra, it's good enough for us, right? Absolutely. The unwinding, that seems to be like, I don't know about you. You see all your stats on your video sales and all of that. You guys, April has a monster presence within online purchases. Like you can purchase a lot of videos, plus she has in-person clinics. But everybody raves about your unwinding video. What is unwinding?
So if you, had yarn that was all tightened up, how you're like, nothing can really move. And my first course is the bodywork was kind of rough. Whenever you're rough to the body or you have, a monster massage, the fascia tightens up. So my program's gotten so smooth and soft that a 12-year-old can do it and an 80-year-old woman can do it. But it's so gentle that when you're doing the whole program, because we blend the clearing the K27 kidneys and we do release all over the head to start the cranial unwinding and down the governing meridian of the spine and down the pectorals to the belly on the conception. So you're opening all these meridians before you even start, and then adding Dr. Bradley Nelson, emotion coding, and defensology, and then the bladder sweeps. And that's before we even get into atlas axis, ribs, withers, and the whole horse just slowly starts to go like this. And in an hour, people just laugh. They go, my horse is like 2 inches taller and I already have to use a step ladder. Could you stop making him bigger? I said, well, but your horse was like, it was trotting around like this and it needs to be like this, So on the pictures that we have, so the horses would get like 4 inches longer and 2 inches taller, and all the fascia would just like fluff up. It would look like they gained 20 pounds. And in the level 2 class, the front legs go from like 4 inches apart to like 8 inches apart as you're unwinding like the sternum. So when you're talking to the fascia and the hide, it signals to the muscles to let go. So my level 2 class is way easier than that sports massage course I took that beat me up. We're like, really? All you have to do is hold this with love and the whole stifled muscles just melt? I'm like, yep.
That's pretty cool. And we have some images that I can share on that. Do you want to share that right now, April?
Just so they know what we're talking about, because the two bay horses. I can explain each one just real quick.
And I do have your book cover. So you guys, April has a brand new book out, which is, do you want to talk about it while I have that up?
Sure. So everybody was like, so, do you see anything wrong with my horse? And I'd be, well, there's a couple little things we could fix. And by the time I start working on it, the owner's almost crying, going, was my horse in pain? I go, yeah, they're uncomfortable. There wasn't anything in your horse's body that could move correctly. So I can just walk up to a horse in the stall or in the cross ties and say, so it's heavier on right rein, doesn't want to do left lead canter, terrible going down hills, and probably doesn't want to pick up a hind foot for the farrier because you have a sore SI joint. And they're like, how do you see all that? I said, just the hooves and the body stance and the muscling and how the horse is holding itself. So I had to put that into writing. So we finally got that. That was like another year. It's funny that I take these big, long courses, but then I only write these little books.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate little books because I get overwhelmed with, oops, wrong share. So here's the images of the bodywork, of the eye.
So that's my level 3 class. The bottom, well, the top eye, 5-year-old mare, they were going to remove the eye, already been through the steroids. It was in the UK. And she was scheduled like 2 weeks from then to have the eye removed. And that's a $5,000 surgery. And the below picture is after I did my level 3 work, where we actually detox the eye, shift the cranial bone so the lacrimal bone can shift and release. And then the orbit of the eye actually gets blood and oxygen again. And those are all the horses that are banging their head and always rubbing. And you'll see that it's pink in this inside corner. And if it's pink, then you have inflammation and some kind of infection. So you always want to be looking at the inside corner of your horse's eye that should be white. But that's the level 3 course. So we're kind of jumping ahead. We got to go back to the level 1 picture. That was just to get you guys excited. So the before picture was in Pennsylvania. The top horse had regular body work every month. I walked up to him and I said, I'm sorry, I can't tell. And the bottom picture is an hour later. So if the back's in spasm, the head's going to come up. They have this, oh, I can't get my horse's head down when I ride. Well, if your back's in spasm, your head's going to come up and you're going to pull with the front end. So, you're going to get really tight and girthy. So you have to kind of release everything. So it looks like he gained about 50 pounds and he looks longer and kind of bigger.
He looks a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Hardly looks like the same horse.
But when you're in pain, how do you sit? You're not like, oh yeah, I just feel so good. People are in pain. You're just sitting here like this. We shrink in on ourselves.
Right.
And this
kind of that fetal position, but with a ton of tension.
Yeah, it hurts to move. You have lactic acid. The horses get ridden and they get put in a stall. They don't get to work it out. So this picture is when I went up to Canada. What was nice about traveling 50,000 miles a year was seeing horses in Australia and New Zealand and France and Belgium and Switzerland and Canada, and just seeing what the difference is or what was similar everywhere. So this was just a 14-year-old mare that had never had body work. And then below, that's just her unwinding. And you can actually see the whole body change in an hour.
And once again, it doesn't even look like the same horse.
Right.
Yeah. I had to compare the socks and everything. I'm like, what?
Is that the same horse? Yeah. But they get shinier. So usually after a session, they start to dapple out as well. So the dappling in the skin coat, you can feed it with rice bran, corn oil, all that stuff. But you don't truly have a healthy horse from the inside out. And when all the oxygen is going through the fascia and the blood and nutrients is moving in the whole body, everything just gets softer and the horses will walk away. And the owner's like, I'll be darned, my horse has got dapples all over his butt and rib cage now. I said, yeah, that'll be another $20. No. But I also teach them that, you got to clean that bean thing because they have to be able to pee to detox. So If it's down, I do that for them too.
I I'm a big bean cleaner myself. I actually really get some satisfaction out of bean cleaning. I've gone to accounts where horses were chronically dropped. And I was like, does your horse always do that? And they're like, yeah, he always does that. We've talked to the vet. We don't know why he always does that. And then pull out a bean the size of my thumb. I'm like, well, he probably couldn't pull it up and then he'd be fine. And so
I actually got 7 the size of small walnuts out of a 25-year-old horse. They left him at my property while they were moving, and he was stretching out, and some of the pee would go this way and some of the pee would go that way. And she goes, oh yeah, every time I ride him, I stick the hose up there, so I know he's clean. Oh, the nice cold water hose. I'm sure that really melts all them beans out. And I just getting all that out when they're that hard and calcified, it backs up the kidneys and everything.
well, and it's weird because people don't actually understand that there's like 3 little holes along the penis that you can like evacuate more beans from. It's not just the tip. And so I was an AI tech. I went to Colorado State University and got my AI certification from them. And when I was cleaning stallions, I noticed that. And I was like, nobody told me this. Like, I've never seen a diagram of this. And started cleaning beans in my practice while I would go work on horses if they let me. And it made a world of difference. And same with the smegma on mares, mare tit wax. I've had miserable, cranky mares, and you just remove the tit wax, and they're like, thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that simple. And I think your approach is pretty, like, sensible. Like, the way you think, you literally put yourself in the horse's shoes, and you try to think like a horse.
Well, you have to be able to eat. You have to have feet. I had a client that we had her horses going good. She bought it from Ann and Hal Hall. Pretty inexpensive because it had a club foot. And 2 years later, when she's top 10ing 50-mile rides and getting BC, they're like, oh, is that same horse with the club foot? She goes, yeah. And they're like, well, where is it? Oh, well, April's been working on it. You know, the high-low syndrome is totally different than a club foot. And then the club foot, the high heel side is usually the one with the first rib misalignment. And the other side is the side that compensates. So your bigger foot with the low heel is going to be the compensating side. That's also going to be the one with the torn tendon or suspensory, because it's compensating for the right one that can't move well. So, and I don't know, I didn't give you any of these pictures. If anybody doesn't know where the first rib is on the horses, when you take away the shoulder, it's all the way up there at the base of the neck. And every horse with kissing spine that I have looked at, if you do my little check on gallbladder 21 for first rib misalignment, every single one has first rib out both sides. So the muscles in the withers and the lumbar are tightening, trying to help the horse pick up the shoulders.
I see that a lot in my practice too. And then it throws the withers off. Gosh, it's just like just a cascade of issues from that brachioplexus, from the sternum. And
But we were told if the horse doesn't want to take right lead canter, it's a weakness. So make them do it more.
yeah.
You know, and the right shoulder can't move. So then they got to throw back to the left hind to pick up and give you the right shoulder. So you're going to have a right stifle that's sore, inside left hind hock. And I tell people by the time your horse is bobbing their head, they're like 3-legged lame. You've missed all the signs coming up.
Yeah, I'd never heard that before. And I was really surprised by that comment. Like, I had to process that in my head and really think about it and ponder, like, okay, so they're finally bobbing their head. They're lame in whatever front leg, but everything else must have failed for them to pull on the front and break down. Is that your process?
Well, if they didn't get a leg hooked in a fence, yeah. So if you're training, I've seen people just out there whipping horses because it can't take the barrel to the right. Okay, so if first rib is out on the left side, the horse will do 2 barrels to the left really good, but can't get that shoulder to do the barrel to the right. So what are they going to practice more on? Trying to get that right barrel. So the whole rest of the body is going to compensate. And the compensation comes, when you go sit in your chair after gardening all day and you fell asleep and you wake up and you're all locked up. That's the horse in the stall that isn't running on 2 or 3 acres to be able to roll and work some stuff out. But there's still body parts that can't do their jobs, and everything else is just overworking. So when you have the torn suspensory or tendon and you spent all those months in stall rest and then trying to hand lead a horse, to exercise it walking, and it's, jumping all over the place, why it comes back, because you never addressed why it was torn in the first place. Why was it overloading?
Well, and I don't think people understand how sensitive horses are. Like, just the way people lead them can throw them out of alignment, I think. What are your thoughts?
And well, there's usually a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So my 2 horses, my barefoot trimmer, he'd say, "Who trained your horses?" I'm like, "Me." Why? He says, "They're the nicest horses. They're 2 feet away. They walk side by side. When you stop, they stop. I don't even have to pick up the lead rope. They just go with you." But I did endurance. So we had to run on the trail with our horses. They learned that's their space. Here's my space. I took care of their body at the vet checks. And when you start getting into this body work, even Ann Hall, who's a famous, Tevis rider, and people pay her from all over the world to find them horses. I let her ride my tiki horse so that I could ride a green horse. So I gave her the nice horse. And she's like, "This isn't one of the nicest horses I've ever ridden. You just think about what you want to do. You just clap, you trot, canter, you sit down, and then, and it just everything on a loose rein. It was just so much fun when you have that and you have that respect. And it's not, I think the horses get more pushy because we're not listening. My first DVD ever is the horses are talking, "Are you listening?" And if your partner's not listening, you talk louder, right? "Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? I got a headache. I'm going to keep butting my head like right in your boobs because that's where your solar plex is. And my head needs some energy. So I'm going to smash your chest." Or, they're biting because they need some attention to their teeth and their face.
Yeah, they try to point us in the right direction, but we don't often see it.
Because our trainers and farriers and, the good old boy way, it's been working that way for 50 years, still working now. It's like, yeah, no, it's not.
Well, the beautiful thing is those days are weaning out. I think the average horse lover, the ones that truly love their horses, want that more intimate relationship. Which is,
or they know, I'm not riding my horse. There's a testimonial from a place I did in Northern California, up kind of in the Great Vineyard area. It was a beautiful place. We did level 1, 2, and 3, but she had me out because she had this big, huge chestnut mare who was now like 14 that she hadn't ridden in like 6 years. The right hind would just fire, lock, the equine shivers, all of that. Couldn't even get near the hind end because it's so sore. UC Davis, Loomis, everywhere they took it to, they're like, "Oh, left front." She's like, "It's in the hind." No, your horse is off on the left front, but right rear is going to throw to left front. And I'm like, they're not even Western medicine professionals who know what the skeleton and aren't even checking that the pelvis is out of alignment. So on that mare, that right hip was back by like 5 inches. It was tilted down. This bone.
hold on,
right?
let me highlight you so everybody can see that better. Okay.
So, there's your hip. So this one's back 5 inches, the other one, and then also tipped down, which puts the psoas into spasm, but it was also tipped out like she'd slipped and fallen on the mud on that side of her butt. So when you look at the rear feet, I always tell people, don't evaluate your horse's hooves from the front, do it from the rear. So when you squat down 10 feet behind your horse, you're going to see all the hoof imbalances, the crushed heels. On that horse, the inside heel was totally crushed and the toe was turning out. So she wasn't even breaking over at the stifle straight. That whole hind leg was in the wrong direction. And as soon as we brought the hip up, changed the angle, and then pulled that in, she was out there trotting and cantering and sliding stops and staying square. And the lady's like, "I haven't seen her like that in 10 years.
And you believe that a lot of your horses are out in the right hip, we do see a lot of right hip issues. And I think it's weird that the respiratory issues on the left, and what are your thoughts about that chronic right issue? Hi.
I thought it would be different in Australia because, in Australia, the water goes different, right? Because you're on the other side of the planet. So on this side of the planet, our foals are born predominantly left. And that's why the racetracks go to the left. In Australia, their foals are born predominantly right. And their racetracks go to the right, but they still had all the same body issues and that right hip was still back. Is it because we mount on the left? It's, are we always bracing that right shoulder? So then it throws back to the left hip. But 99.9% of the time, it's always the right hip back, and the string halt and the equine shivers is always on the right hind. People say, my horse has equine shivers. They said, right hind leg. They go, yeah, how'd you know?
Yeah, that's so amazing. I never even thought of that. That never crossed my mind. Like, I see a lot of right hind lamenesses, and often it's EPM, and it seems to settle in the right hind. And I've always wondered why it manifests more on the right hind. And some people think it's the position of the spleen or something else in regards to the compensation, or I believe the disease actually like hosts in the right hind. But yeah, and we talked about vaccines settling in the hind end too.
And then you have people that post mainly a left diagonal. So when I was doing endurance rides, my fastest 50-mile race is 3 hours and 42 minutes. That was fast.
Say that again.
My fastest 50-mile, right? It was across a desert. It's called a wagon train ride, where you go from like point A to B 50 miles a day. It was 3 hours and 42 minutes. So that's not with your vet times. You have an hour break, and then another half-hour break, but that's just your run time. So you're averaging 17, 18 miles an hour. So you have to kind of know what you're doing horse-wise and, body-wise to kind of keep that going. But I had a treeless saddle, and I two-pointed, and you kind of open your hips. You can drop your heels, lift your toes, and be light. And it was deep sand moguls at another ride I went to. And I was in first place. I was going, wee, wee, wee. And they had something like 30 lameness pulls at that ride. And I asked, are they all on left front? And they said, yeah, they are. I said, because everyone's trotting a left diagonal when they're doing this, and that lock left leg with that rider on the left diagonal is hitting that base of that next hill. I see patterns and stuff and all the.
Your thought process is really interesting. It's really fun to follow your brain a little bit.
Well, the distance readings I do, right? So
Right.
People send me left and right side picture of their horse. And if they get the home study program, it's $400. It includes the distance reading, or you can just get one by itself for $75. People would send me pictures of their horse, and I didn't have an assistant at the time, so I was typing it all up. Okay, first rib left side, this is sore, that's sore, this sore, this sore. And now I'm going to look at the ones that all have first rib right side, and you could just start to see the pattern of what was happening.
And there definitely seems, at least in my practice, I see like zigzag patterns throughout the horse, like you were saying, the right front to the left hind, but then it zigzags throughout the whole body. And
right, but we're tighter on our right side because of getting in and out of pickup trucks and cars. So all of my clients, I tell them, especially with trucks, you cannot use your psoas muscle to hike up your hip to get into that seat. You need to step up, turn around, sit down like a girl with the mini skirt on, and put both legs in together and come out the same. And then we're driving all day with the right. So is our right tightening the horse as well?
I can't drive a stick shift at all. It throws my hips out so bad. Yeah, one of my very first cars as a kid was a stick shift, and I hated that thing. But also, I was just thinking about the heart being a little more on the left-hand side, and I wonder if that breathing issue with that nerve issue is connected to the heart. What are your thoughts about that? I just never really thought about it.
It could be. The only time I've had to work on heart issues on a horse, my client in California bought a hunter jumper cross country horse for a lot of money in Florida and had him all vetted out. He was all good. I think he was 7 or 8 at the time. Shipped him over here and they vaccinated him and sedated him for dental floating that day. And it triggered something in his heart. And he's never been the same. So I gave her a heart rate monitor, but they said he can drop dead out from under you at any time. I wouldn't be jumping fences. So all of that triggered too much. And most vets are right-handed, giving it on that side. So how many vets are giving it on one side of the neck versus the other when they go to sedate your horse?
Right. True. I never really thought of that, but that's absolutely correct. And this is why I like talking to you, because you just get my brain kind of spinning. So,
Well, that's like the horses that are head shy, but only on one ear. You just go to the other side because the old cowboys and vets were right-handed and they would twist the horse's left ear. I tell people to bridle the horse from the other side.
Can you talk about kissing spine a little bit?
I actually have x-rays and pictures. I really recommend people get on Facebook and look up Helen Davies in South Africa.
We've had her as a guest.
So I've been trying to work with her. She doesn't get pictures before because I can, in my reading, say what's going on before they put the horse down. That was so dangerous. And then she boils down and shows the bones and everything. But I have permission to use all of her pictures in my writing and stuff and just give her credit. So we did newsletters recently about the little fractures of bones in the withers. So when you have kissing spine, it's going to be, in one of those two areas. And I worked on horses, where the withers are drawn too close and the lumbar spine's drawn too close. I worked on horses with scars in their back from pieces being cut out. I'm like, okay, so you're cutting out the pieces of bone, so it's not there anymore, but you're not addressing the cause. Why are muscles so tight pulling the bones close together? Doesn't anybody want to ask that?
I was always taught muscle moves bone, bone does muscle. So I always think about that, but I don't know if anybody else does.
I worked on a horse in Belgium that was a jumping horse, but both hind legs come together. And it was 7 years old. She had x-rays, diagnosed with kissing spine. I did my whole session. I do the body and the head. And she says 3 months later, wow, the vet says my horse doesn't have kissing spine anymore. I said, great, can we get those x-rays? No, he won't release them. Yeah, I've had more hard times trying to get, the side bone and ring bone's gone. Great, can we get those x-rays? No, they don't want to give them to us. I'm like, really?
So awful.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's like a supernatural issue or like an ego issue that vets don't want people to know that body workers can actually fix kissing spine?
Or legal issues. I don't know. I know there's so many states that outlaw, people like us working on horses that you can't have a big sign on your truck and vets will turn you in. And when I lived in Sacramento, I was going to buy some property and open like an equine rehab place and take all free horses. And then people come have classes there. And then I get this letter from Sacramento Veterinary Board being investigated for diagnosing and treating. And I was like, so what do you think I'm diagnosing and treating? Because basically I fly globally, not working much locally. And well, your video on Cranial says horses with headaches. If you look at the cover, it's a 2-year-old horse and its head looks like this. And I'm going, yeah, it looks like it has a headache. You can't say he has a headache. That's diagnosing. So I had to change the name of the DVD to Equine Cranial Sacral in parentheses, formerly horses with headaches. I had to do all these things on my website. I couldn't say like a medical intuitive for my long distance reading. So if you put it into the woo-woo animal communication thing, they leave you alone.
Yeah.
Same thing with equine musculoskeletal unwinding. What are you doing? I'm just unwinding the horse. I had to give names to my students so they could say something. I say that you do cranial sacral. The vets leave you alone because they think you're just working on the head. They don't know a lot about it. And then you're back on the hips and they're like, what are you doing? Well, cranial, sacral, head, sacrum, working on everything in between. But yeah, I have a lot of students that have to tiptoe around. Utah's really bad.
Really?
Yeah, you can't touch a horse. So she works under a trainer, and it's part of the training package that comes in. When your horse comes into the barn, this is all the things that's going to be due. It's just part of the horse training.
That's amazing. That's actually really smart. And then that way the trainer gets whatever they want done, and there's no questions asked between like, hey, can you pay for this? Hey, well, your horse really needs this. So I love that idea.
Well, I
Hey,
was retraining problem horses, and I'd say we're going to do the body work. We're going to balance the feet. My vet's going to do the teeth. I'm going to look at their nutrition, and then we'll see what's left. And in 30 days, I had done what the other trainers had quoted them 3 months. And they're like, you unzipped the color of my horse that was rearing fire breathing dragon when I brought him to you. And now this docile little thing that says, are you going to get on me now? Is not my horse. What'd you do with my horse? So I took him out of pain. I listened to what his issues were. We fixed it. Now you have a nice horse.
that's so awesome. Okay, April, we've been chatting for almost an hour. Do you want to like open this to all the members to ask questions?
We can, but can I point out my other books real quick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How do we connect with you?
So this is the first one I ever did, Horse 101, all the things you wish you learned before you got your first horse. And we give it out free in an ebook to kind of educate people when the horse trailer is rocking, you don't climb in, all these other kind of things, what makes a horse colic. And if you just go to horseacademy101.com, you get the free ebook. And then everybody said, so what do you do about stones again? What do you do about over vaccinating? What do you do about bacterial and viral? So then I had to write this book that's on Amazon. They're all like $9 if you want the paperback. And you'll throw out everything that is in your medicine chest. You do not cold water, fresh hose wounds. That's the worst thing you can do, or saline bodies. You don't want to use iodine and alcohol and hydrogen peroxide that kills the skin cells. You want something that can heal it from the inside out without scar tissue. So that was those two. Then there's one, if I can do it, you can too. It has why my customers and clients follow me for years before they finally come take a test, because our things of worthlessness and not being good enough from childhood, we don't think we're good enough. And I tell people the worst thing you can do is not try. So it gets through some of our stuff that's in my program, and then what I see when I see a horse. So you can just learn to walk up and say, oh, crooked head, crooked feet, crooked body. Yep, I can fix this horse for you.
April, let me share your website too, so people know what that looks like.
Yeah, everything is HolisticHorseworks. The 2 YouTube channels, Facebook, 3 Facebook pages.
And what is this approved training provider? I've never actually heard of that.
So a lot of the courses that people are taking, they're misleading them to think that you're certified in it. You cannot certify someone in a modality unless you're the originator of the program. So there's so many other programs out there that, well, I got certified for equine massage in 3 days. Are you kidding? It's like 400 hours, to be certified for people. And so I went on Masterson Methods, IICT approved too. So I followed that, and the company's in Australia, and it's International Institute for Complementary Therapies. So if you go through my level 1 program, and then we submit videos at the end so I can see what you're doing, then you can get a certificate to be IICT approved. And I only did that. I didn't need it because I'm already global, but I did that for all my students to hopefully be able to work side by side with vets to say, am I ICT approved? And when you join them, I think it's $149 a year. You can list every other class that you took that you got a certificate in. So it looks like you're certified in all of them. But it's nice to put that IICT logo on your site and your business card. So because there's so many people out there, and that's what pissed off the vets. They take a 3-day class. They think they can go fix horses. In Arizona, there's a company called Animal Crackers, and they go out with rubber mallets to work on horses. I'm like, oh, God.
I started off that way. And then I ditched it. I was like, this is ridiculous. That's not working. But yeah, it's the Dr. Kamen method, I think.
Yeah, he says ribs never come out. They don't come out. They go into spasm. The intercostals turn, but they lock down the thoracic. So
Yeah. And people come out of that weekend with their certification and claim they're an equine chiropractor. But now,
right, but the certificate usually just says certificate of completion. They like to make you think that you're certified.
exactly.
So all of my instructors, I have 10 now, had to get retrained with me to make sure that globally we're all teaching it the same in South Africa and Australia and Belgium and Switzerland, Canada. We opened up Ireland, South Africa, and Costa Rica in the last year.
That's so fun. Now you also have a podcast, and then you have all your courses. How many courses do you have for purchase?
Just two.
Just two.
So level one is that the horse has been crooked since 6 months of age, starting your high-low. You know, if you stand behind your horse on the bucket about 10 feet back, you'll see one butt higher, one side back lower, one shoulder bigger, the withers kind of crooked. And you're putting a straight saddle on that and girthing them up to fit, you know, when their body's not in alignment. So that's all level one, and bacterial and viral. And level two's the fascia, the organs, the diaphragm, the muscles. You can unwind all the tight hind end muscles in a horse in 2 days with only like 20 minutes a day of holding the muscles and giving love. It's a cranial sacral technique.
April. You do dogs too.
I do. Horses, dogs, and people in that order.
And I think people need to be done if they're dragging their horses off to the side. I mean, I think it's a vicious cycle. Like you're saying, high hip, dropped shoulder, whatever. And then the owners are riding crooked. And so it's kind of a symbiotic relationship of decline.
Well, I've actually had top FEI endurance riders send me before and after pictures on her long training rides. And I'd say, whatever you're doing, you're dropping rib 10 and 11 on your 30-mile training ride. You have to not do that. Well, my body's crooked. Well, I don't care. You can't ride your horse crooked for 100 miles. So we had to work with padding and lengthening one stirrup until she could ride balance on a horse for 100 miles, until all of a sudden she wasn't dropping ribs 10 and 11, because that's going to short stride that whole left side.
Amazing. All right, let's leave it open to everybody else. I'm going to open the gallery. And you guys.
I'm not going to answer any vet type questions. I can say stuff. If it was my horse, I would do it this way.
Cheyenne, do you have any questions?
Sure. Hi, April. I'm Cheyenne.
Nice to meet you.
So glad to get to listen to you today. Okay, so just today I worked on two horses with their sternums off to one side, and I am finding the pattern of rope horses, especially team roping horses. And I haven't noticed a pattern yet, whether it's to the left or right. It seems to be both. What are your thoughts on how I can help these people prevent this? Because it's happening consistently with rope horses. Once in a while, barrel horses, once in a while, a pleasure horse, but super consistent on rope horses. So tell me your thoughts on sternum there.
What body work are you doing for them? Are you releasing the first rib?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And picking up one leg to actually push on the sternum over, getting the withers on the other side, using leverage. It's an easy move. It works very well. But my whole thing is, yes, we're fixing them. How can we help prevent this? And, you know, my brain's trying to figure out, why is this happening? Is there some move as they're coming around the corner? You know, it's mostly on heel horses, but not always. Sometimes it's a head horse. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I help these people strengthen that, or do something maybe not strengthening? Maybe there's something else they need to be doing to make the not such a all the time thing that's happening.
Well, send me like a left and right side picture when you're done with the horse at my email address, april@HolisticHorseworks.com, because a lot of body workers are getting ribs 2 and 3 and not the first. I find the twisted sternum on
I do. I do.
No, but I'm just saying after you're
now?
done, I'll let you know if something
Okay.
is being missed for free. I have
Okay.
backyard pet horses. So any horse that's had a hard trauma to the chest, been kicked or whatever, I'm finding most of it's going off to the right side, the off side. There's only a couple that go off to the left. In my level
Okay.
2, we unwind that, the diaphragm and the intercostals, but you have to get them out of the sticky tack pads and the girths that grip. You know, they have this
Okay.
round quarter horse and they're trying to get the tack so they're not slipping and sliding, and that can tweak and tighten that again. I mean, we release the sternum like in one session, but you have to address all the ribs, the intercostals, the diaphragm, is it hanging off on one side, and look at their tack. If I'm working on a horse again, I'm like, I want to see your tack. Well, I have to use a square skirt saddle. Well, I don't like square skirt saddles on any competition horses because it really digs into the psoas. But they're like, oh, I have to use that grip, grippy tack girth so that, we don't slide, and how are they girth? Are they pulling this way like we were originally taught to do, or are they pulling this way? All my clients, I have them do buckles on both sides. So they're gradually doing on both sides, not continually pulling everything over in one direction. So let's tack, let's do that. But send me a picture after you've done your session and I'll see if we're missing like an elbow, the intercostals. Are you doing the myofascial behind the scapula to free up all of this?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So not in
I think what's
neck.
No, behind. What I was mostly wondering about is prevention. What can I have, or can I have them do anything for prevention? But I think the tack is fantastic. That's probably
the tack and
into it
on one side, and how much they're gripping that horse's fascia and body to not slide. In endurance, we always had to worry about our saddle sliding so far back on the uphill that you were making the psoas sore. So the type of breast collars we recommended had the extra piece that goes up over the withers in front of the saddle. So it brought that whole breast collar strap up, not across the horse's shoulder, but following the line. And that gives people a lot of stability for that extra wide girth. But I tell everyone to go back to the mohair ones. People don't want that. They want the neoprene because they don't want to have to wash girths. Mine were the mohair cotton ones. They had elastic things on each end. So, you could do a little bit on each side. If you're always pulling one way and you have that ring there, that's embedded in their flesh when they do the Western saddle, that's always going to be tight on that side. Right. So if something keeps coming back, I look at the environment and the tack and what they're using and how much I have to do that Dixie Midnight pad because it grips the horse, right? And you're bruising all the fascia, and I have to use this girth because it grips the horse, and that again is bad.
Well, and
that's awesome. Thank you for that.
For the rope horses, I know when I was a kid and I roped, they only rode them to the left. They just
I know.
They just look left. And actually one day, because I came from a show background, I was like, why are we only loping to the left? This makes no sense. And they're like, oh, you don't want to lope to the right. Your horse will start swapping leads on you. So yes, this is a mentality in the rope industry. And it's still like that, right, Cheyenne? I mean, people aren't getting their horses
100%.
They're not. Yeah, they beaut them, give them time off, and then they just go for it again and they inject the hocks.
Yeah. Or they inject every joint in them that moves. It's unbelievable. So yes, you're correct, Poppy. They're still all making left-hand circles and not to the right. And one by one, I'm trying to change that. I'm like the one woman boycott over here in Texas trying to make it right. But I love the tack part of it. That's great. The pulling up on one side, because I'm trying to figure out why every day am I having to fix these? Not necessarily the same horse over and over, but every roper that comes through, same thing, same thing, same thing.
But they need a
So,
saddle and a girth
thank
that
you for
grips the horse so they don't get ripped off the horse. So you have to see what can change, just like barrel racers and reiners want that square skirt saddle. But every time that horse turns and bends, the saddle and the pad, it's usually a crushed felt pad or a Dixie Midnight pad, is just irritating that psoas. And the other end of that attachment inside the hock. So you keep irritating the psoas and your hocks are going to be this close together. And I tell people, great, you love your saddle, fits your horse, go to the leather store, cut a round skirt. Get that square part out of that psoas in your 18th rib and stop bugging that area.
You need
Perfect.
you need a Cheyenne Thomason exclusive rope rehab saddle.
Yes, for sure.
Your son's
Okay, ask some.
You can create something like that and have him start riding in that and winning in that, and then you've changed.
Oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I try to get people back to the Navajo blankets that breathe. I'm like, if you wouldn't wear it for underwear, don't put it on your horse's back and in its armpits.
Yeah. There you go.
Say,
You know, everybody got away from the stuff that was good for the horse because there was so much washing and care.
well, and I always have had like fluffy
Yeah.
cinches when I was growing up. I didn't love the mohair so much because it felt so prickly, but I definitely would have fluff. But then the neoprene came out and it's super hot. Like, I don't think anybody takes in consideration how hot that is and how much heat it generates. But
Well, in the first mount of the day, when the horse is cold, how much it pulls on the skin in the armpits.
yeah,
You know, endurance horses, we
Yeah.
teach them to mount and dismount from both sides. So we're even. If this is your cliff side, you have to be able to get off on the right side without spooking your horse.
well, and the problem with the rope horses too, April, is they are coming around that left corner. They grab the heels, Dally, and jerk that horse. You know, that just concussion of slamming them from the steer. Like
Yeah,
that.
but you know, you have to think about that saddle tree dropping in behind that scapula, right? As they're getting yanked. And are they tweaking those ribs right there, which is just going to undo your whole sternum release?
Mhm. Yeah.
Muscle
And
and spasm pulls
That's what's
bone.
happening.
So now you have to make every roper change hands and go to the right.
You gotta do it
Oh,
left-handed.
We're changing the industry. Yeah.
sounds like a big plan, but we'll try it. Okay,
What-
ask for more
all you-
questions. If you don't get any, come back to me.
All you need to do is sponsor someone that's willing to listen to you when they start winning. You can say it's one of my horses.
Any
If
other
you want your horse to win like that one, she listens to me. I was working with a lady, Diane, that was in Vacaville, and she was winning barrel racing and stuff. And her horse had ulcers. He was only 7. We worked through the whole body. I said, it's great, but you still have crooked feet and the whole frog is off center. And on your left front, it's flat on the inside and all the way out here. And the frog's over here. And you can't keep your horse down and keep doing that. 8 months later, she said, okay, you're right. He did the suspensory. What do I do now? And we got him to go barefoot and we got the whole hoof balance. But it's like, you know, I did the body, but you still got to do the feet.
I am so about forensic hoof observation. Like, I will look at a hoof and how it's growing. And just like you said, if the frog's going a little kilter, it's a red flag, you guys. And no hoof, no horse. But a lot of people blame their farriers for that. And often it's higher up because they're compensating and wearing to get off something in their neck or jaw. So definitely.
Or they, you know, try to slow down the rears so that they stop pulling the front shoes instead of just fixing the front end so it could pick up faster. Leaving all these trailers. And there's a farrier on island here. He keeps putting egg bar steel shoes right across the frog on all my horses and huge shoe boils because he makes them himself. And it's really thin metal across the back, cutting your elbows. And I'm just going, oh my God.
How do we build awareness?
You have to educate the horse owners so much that they start educating their vet farriers and trainers. That's what my program's about. I tried to educate the vet farriers and trainers. They didn't want to know. It's been working this way for 40 years. So I have over 190 free YouTube videos. Everything's Holistic Horseworks. My podcasts are usually under 6 minutes, one subject. So they're on Apple and Spotify, but also my website. So if you just want to learn one thing while you're driving to the barn, you can just pick the one thing. You don't have to go through it. And people say, oh my God, I had to hit backwards, because you really start talking right away. It's not about me and my experience. Hey, we're going to talk about uveitis right now. Go out and measure your horse's head.
Lee is saying that she has a yearling colt right now that wears his back feet unevenly and is trying to become cowhawk. What can she do?
You need to fix both first ribs and put the hips in. It starts in the front end. So if neither shoulder can move correctly, when they go to canter, they actually have to go back to the psoas to pick up the front end. And the more that psoas goes into spasm, the closer the hind legs are going to come together. So I tell people, when you're looking at your horses, they should have a groove going all the way down the horse's back, like where the muscles, and then it's a little bit of a depression. And you'll find right behind the 18th rib that it starts to raise. That's all the psoas in spasm pulling the lumbar. So you're going to see that horse when he's running with both hind feet together. I call it like the little bunny rabbit hop instead of the individual.
Right.
If she gets my home steady program, then she can work on all of that herself.
Okay. And you're going to be back in California in the fall, right?
If we fill up the classes, guys. Who wants to come to Vacaville or Davis to take a class in October?
Yeah. So I happen to live really close. I will be gone the first week of October, though. I already have made a commitment there. So hopefully it won't be the first week, but April, I would love to come.
Yeah. So hopefully then, I'm only doing the West Coast right now because I've got 3 instructors, Indiana, Ohio, and Kansas. So they're kind of doing the East Coast. I kind of like it here in Maui. I like staying, swimming, and no horse trails. So I'm not riding here.
And April, you are 62 years old, looking fabulous.
62 young, not old.
You're young. Yeah, exactly. Total inspiration that holistic life is the best life.
That doesn't mean I don't have a beer in the afternoon.
That's all you, baby.
Yeah. So I hope you guys join us. I hope you find me on the internet. We had one more person that had a question, or was that it for the year?
Diane wants to ask another question. She has this burning question, and she's asking what
when you mentioned ring bone earlier, what do you put the dynamite salve? It seems like I watched a video you said one time. Is it dynamite salve you put on it or something along that line? Remind me what you do for ring bone.
Well, there's 3 things that starts it. One's the first rib being out of alignment. When the first rib's out of alignment, the horse is not landing heel to toe. He's using rhomboid and trapezius and coming up and landing toe to heel. So you're jamming that knee and you're jamming that fetlock. And your side bone is, can you see that?
Yes.
So when you're looking at your horse's coronary band and it's not and the ting points aren't soft, that's what's under there. And it actually affects the coffin bone. So people say, can you ask if my horse wants to jump? I said, you have side bone and ring bone. He might want to take off in the air, but he doesn't want to land on those feet because it's painful. It's like rocks in your shoes. So I tell them to do the body work first, to add 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar to their feed, kind of gradually to help break down, because osteoarthritis is porous, where the other bone is dense. So when you're doing apple cider vinegar, it helps people with ulcers and indigestion, but it also helps to break down arthritic hands and feet and knees. And then we use the dynamite balm, not the salve. It used to be called wound balm, but it's not supposed to go in a wound. So they had to change the name. And we do a sweat once a week, but you have to be careful and watch the video, because I had people doing tight saran wrap. and it's too hot. The plastic that I use is like your shavings bag, stiff plastic. So that air is still getting under there when you put it around. So that's your side bone. If they have ring bone and a thicker ankle fetlock area, I just put the balm all the way up, cut the plastic a little longer.
Okay.
And I have a YouTube video on that because no matter what I said, they used the wrong plastic, the wrong bell boots interference. They were blistering the coronary band saying, what am I doing wrong? So every time someone said, how do you do that? I made a little video. So most of my YouTube videos are also under 4.5, 5 minutes long because we all have short attention spans nowadays. So you can just make a little reminder, one podcast a day, one video a day, 4 minutes, good.
April,
And then the equine musculoskeletal unwinding is the level 1 course. Someone had written what was the name of the course.
excellent.
So that comes with, it's a landing page. So one thing that I'm doing that other people aren't doing, everything is on a landing page and digital download. You get your workbook, you get your videos, but I can't change the moves in the original video. So every time we change or upgrade the moves, I add another free little video in there. So there's a whole page of here's how we do the elbow, here's how we do the knee, here's how we do the new ilium pull down. And you always have access to that page. 2 years from now, you're like, oh, I got a horse again. I want to refresh on that. Or the kid's gone off to college and I have time again. It's not digging through stuff. You just go back to your homework page and it's there. And we update the workbook every year, which is about 145 pages.
That's amazing. Yeah. I wanted to say something about that ring bone and side bone is people that leave bell boots on forever drives me crazy. I just think it's a recipe for disaster.
But they do that because they have the crushed heel and the horse isn't picking up the shoulder because of the first rib. So if you fix that, they don't have to put the bell boots on and they don't have to have the egg bar shoe that makes the shoe boil on the elbow. So you still got to go back to, I was that why child. And once I learned about kinesiology, because my mom always just said, because I said so, but why? So now I can say, but why? Where it started. Is that where it started? And that's what I empower on my students to really feel good about that. And then they get to submit 5 case studies after, one at a time. And I let them know if they're missing anything. You didn't quite get ribs 10 and 11. How, show me how you're doing the move. You're not quite getting the axis. So show me how you're doing the move. And I didn't have any of that in any of my classes.
Right.
And people, 5 years later, can I continue my course? Sure. Because I'm not about ego. I'm about you guys helping all the horses out there.
Yeah. April, thank you for your time. This has been a wonderful chat. And thank you guys for watching. And you know where to reach out to April. It's HolisticHorseworks.com.
April at HolisticHorseworks.com.
Excellent. You guys take care.
I expect you to send me a picture of one of the horses after you fix it, that the sternum keeps twisting, and I'll see if I can find something.
Right on.
Well, I appreciate all the help. Thank you.
You bet. That's what I'm here for.
That's so kind of you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
And now that we're live on Facebook in a certain way, I have to figure out how to quit going live. Okay, let me see if that worked.
You want me just to cancel out and you can work on all that?
Yeah, if you want to go, go.
Okay.
Thank
It's
you.
beautiful and sunny here in Maui, and I'm going to go to the beach.
Woo, woo. I'm going to go clean stalls. Yeah, we're no longer live.
All right, guys. See you next time, hopefully in October.
Okay.
To learn more, visit HolisticHorseworks.com. And before you go, make sure you have a copy of our free ebook, Horse 101, Everything You Wish You Had Known Before You Got Your First Horse, at HorseAcademy101.com.